Political polls shape our understanding of elections, but did you know they can be wildly inaccurate? In 2016, a staggering 90% of polls predicted a Hillary Clinton victory, yet Donald Trump won the presidency. That's not just a small miscalculation, it's a dramatic failure that left many stunned. And it doesn't stop there. In 2020, polls again struggled to predict key outcomes, with many underestimating Trump's support among working-class voters. So, why do we keep relying on these numbers? The truth is, polls offer more than just snapshots of public opinion. They influence how we think, vote, and even what issues we care about. But what lies behind the numbers? In this video, we'll explore the surprising ways polls mislead us, how media spins data to create narratives, and the hidden value in flawed polls. Get ready for a deep dive into the world of political polling, where the numbers may be wrong, but their impact is undeniable. You'll discover why understanding these polls is crucial for navigating today's political landscape. Let's unravel the mystery of why political polls are always wrong, yet still matter. Chapter 1: The Polling Illusion: Why we still believe political polls are everywhere. They pop up during elections, in news articles, and on our social media feeds. But here's the catch: they're often wrong. Yet, somehow, we keep trusting them. Why? One big reason is our natural love for numbers. Humans tend to believe that numbers are objective and accurate, and polls give us a sense of certainty in an uncertain world. As Nate Silver, a well-known statistician, said in The Signal and the Noise, we have a problem with interpreting probabilities. We crave predictions that feel concrete, and polls offer that, even when they shouldn't. One example is the 2016 US presidential election. Many polls showed Hillary Clinton leading, and most people thought she'd win. However, Donald Trump pulled off a victory that surprised millions. But the truth is, polls didn't predict the outcome, they only showed a snapshot of public opinion at a given time. And that snapshot is easily distorted. So why do we keep falling for this illusion? Part of it has to do with trust in institutions. Pollsters are often seen as experts, and we're wired to believe experts know what they're doing. Plus, media outlets reinforce the importance of polls by reporting them as though they're set in stone. This reinforces the illusion that polls are accurate, even when they're not. Chapter 2: The Data Mirage: How polls mislead us. Polls aren't magic, they're just data collection. And like all data, polls can be flawed. One of the biggest issues is sampling error. Polls rely on a small sample of people to represent the views of millions. But what happens if that sample isn't truly representative? That's where things go wrong. For example, the famous Literary Digest poll in 1936 predicted a landslide victory for Alf Landon over Franklin D. Roosevelt. The problem? Their sample was skewed toward wealthier voters, who leaned Republican. They underestimated the vast number of working-class voters who supported FDR. The result? A massive polling failure. Another issue is non-response bias. People who choose not to respond to polls may have different opinions from those who do. According to Pew Research, in 1997, the response rate for surveys was around 36%. Today, it's down to about 6%. That means most people are ignoring pollsters, and the few who answer could be very different from the general population. Even the questions pollsters ask can be misleading. The way a question is phrased can shape the answer. A poll from 2004 showed that when Americans were asked if they supported gay marriage, fewer agreed. But when the same people were asked if they supported the right for same-sex couples to marry, support increased. Same issue, different framing, completely different results. Chapter 3: Behind the Polling Curtain: Who's really being asked? So, who's actually being asked in these polls? And is their opinion really reflective of the broader public? The answer is often more complicated than we think. Pollsters aim to create a sample that mirrors the population, but that's harder than it sounds. A 2020 study from the American Association for Public Opinion Research found that most political polls overrepresented college-educated voters and underrepresented non-college-educated voters. This can significantly distort results. For example, many polls leading up to the 2020 US election underestimated Donald Trump's support among working-class voters, just like in 2016. Moreover, people from certain demographics are less likely to respond to polls. Young people, minorities, and lower-income individuals are often harder to reach. This leads to what's called coverage bias. When these groups aren't well represented, the poll results may not accurately reflect their opinions. This is especially important when you consider that these groups can sway elections. Pollsters try to correct this by weighting, adjusting the sample to better reflect the population. But weighting isn't perfect. If the original sample is too skewed, no amount of adjusting can fully fix it. And sometimes, pollsters overcorrect. After the 2016 election, some pollsters overemphasized Trump's support, leading to errors in the opposite direction. The truth is, who gets asked matters. The next time you see a poll, it's worth asking, who isn't being asked? Because often, that's where the real story lies. If you're finding this information helpful, consider subscribing. Stay updated for more insights into the world of politics and polling. Chapter 4, Media Spin. Why polls are political weapons. Polls aren't just neutral numbers. In the media, they often become political tools. News outlets love to report on polls because they're easy to digest, and they drive engagement. However, they can also be misleading when used to shape narratives. Take, for instance, the concept of bandwagon effect. It's the idea that people are more likely to support a candidate who appears to be winning. When the media highlights a poll showing one candidate in the lead, it can influence undecided voters to back the popular choice, simply because it seems like the safe bet. According to a study by Gallup, around 5% of voters change their preference based on which candidate is leading in the polls. While this may seem small, in tight races, it can make all the difference. Another issue is cherry-picking polls. Media outlets often highlight polls that support their narrative, even when other polls show something different. In 2020, some networks focused on polls that showed a strong lead for Joe Biden, while others emphasized Trump's improving numbers in key battleground states. Both were technically right, but the overall story was incomplete. This selective reporting can make one side seem much stronger than it actually is. Even more subtle is the way polls are reported. Phrases like, "Biden surges ahead," or "Trump plummets," are meant to grab attention, but they often exaggerate small changes in polling data. A movement of just a few points can be framed as a dramatic shift, making the political landscape seem more volatile than it really is. Chapter 5, The Unseen Value. Why flawed polls still matter. Even though polls are often wrong, they still play an important role in politics. How can that be? Well, despite their flaws, polls can give us valuable insights into trends and voter behavior. One key value of polling is the ability to track shifts in public opinion over time. For example, support for same-sex marriage in the US dramatically increased over the past few decades. Polls help document this shift. According to Gallup, in 1996, only 27% of Americans supported same-sex marriage. By 2021, that number had risen to 70%. Even if individual polls were off by a few percentage points, the trend was clear: public opinion was changing. Polls can show us the direction in which society is heading, even if they don't predict exact outcomes. Campaigns also use polls strategically. They rely on polls to figure out where to focus their resources. If a candidate is slightly behind in a swing state, polling data might push them to spend more time and money there. It's not about absolute accuracy, but about identifying key trends. A 2020 study from Pew Research Center found that while most polls aren't perfect, they're still good enough to guide campaign strategy and messaging. Furthermore, flawed polls still offer insights into voter motivations. Even if polls misjudge the exact number of people who support a candidate, they can highlight the issues that matter to voters. In the 2020 election, polls consistently showed that the economy and healthcare were the top concerns for Americans. Even though the final poll results may have been off, understanding what drives voters can be crucial for political campaigns. If you enjoyed this exploration into the world of political polls, don't forget to subscribe. Stay tuned for more engaging discussions and insights into the ever-evolving political landscape.